Hey there, Knicks fans. We are so excited to announce that Fanatics Fest is back in New York City this summer, taking over the Jacob Javits Center from Thursday, July 16th to Sunday, July 19th. You can meet your favorite athletes from every major league, including current Knicks like Josh Hart, Jalen Brunson, and Karl-Anthony Towns, and the legend, my guy, Patrick Ewing. Catch live podcasts and panels featuring some of the biggest names in sports while experiencing interactive activations from top leagues and brands. You could also grab exclusive merch and discover one-of-a-kind memorabilia from sports and entertainment, buy, sell, and trade collectibles with hundreds of top dealers, and best of all, connect with fans from around the world who share your passion for sports. Tickets are on sale now at fanaticsfest.com, and when you use that promo code KnicksFilm10 at checkout, you will get 10% off your purchase. How about that? It's an extra day of the world's #1 sports fan festival coming together under one roof, and you will not want to miss it. Welcome to the Knicks Film School Postgame Show presented by Fanatics Sportsbook. That was one hell of a win. I'm fired up after that one. This was, I'm not going to sit here and say this was the Knicks' best win of the season. Obviously, Christmas Day, the Landry Shamet game, the NBA Cup semifinal. You could even throw in the Pacer game where a bunch of starters were out. This was pretty high up there for me. And I think for the reason why, unlike all of the games that I just mentioned, this was a game that came as the Knicks are clearly not playing still their best basketball, and I think one of the interesting conversations tonight, there'll be a lot of interesting conversations tonight. One of them will be like, how good did the Knicks actually play tonight versus how much did they actually just make the big plays in the fourth quarter to pull it out? And I'm willing to hear some different arguments on that. I'm honestly not sure which way I feel right now. I think they played pretty well, but you still, for a lot of this game on both ends of the floor, you didn't 100% feel like you were watching, the Knicks as we have become accustomed to for much of this season. So hell of a win against a team that had won 5 in a row, was rolling. They defend the hell out of the ball, and they have two emerging. Well, one guy is already kind of a superstar, and another, maybe he's an emerging star on offense, in Shaedon Sharpe. And then the Caleb Love game. Great job by them to survive the Caleb Love game. We're going to talk about all of it, but I would be remiss to start anywhere other than Josh Hart. And that is with all due respect to the fourth quarter defense, which coming off of the fourth quarter defense that they played against the Suns in Phoenix, which was obviously the bright spot of that game. We're going to get into that because I thought it was a massive takeaway, and I thought some of the specifics of how they defended in the fourth quarter and who was on the floor in the fourth quarter defending. We're definitely going to talk about that. That's all very interesting, but look, the Knicks, right up until whatever it was, the end of January in the 22-23 season, were, I think, a team that we still at that point didn't fully know what they were and what their ceiling was and whether they were ever, whether they were like a super serious team. Obviously, Jalen Brunson didn't make an all-star team, but was playing at an all-star level. That signing, Leon Rose knocked it out of the park. But you had the We Here season, and then you had this terrible season that came after it, and then you had a really rough start to the 22-23 season. And then you won a bunch of games in a row, but it was still kind of uneven from there. You had a 5-game losing streak, when Brunson was injured right around Christmas time, the holidays. And, it was a very up and down season. And I think at that time, you didn't quite know which way the franchise was going to turn. And while all of us who are fans of this team will always look back at the signing of Jalen Brunson and the emergence of Jalen Brunson as a superstar, capital S superstar, MVP candidate, the whole thing, as the moment when the franchise truly changed course, I would argue that the second most important moment was when they traded for Josh Hart. And that is with all due respect to when they made the move for OG Anunoby, and that is certainly right up there because it clarified things. It arguably, the not got rid of their biggest weaknesses, but it answered a lot of questions. There were a lot of questions, and then suddenly they moved for OG, and it seemed like all those questions, at least for the moment, were answered. So this isn't to put down the OG trade, but that was more their completing moment as a basketball team on the floor. When they traded for Josh Hart, it completed who they could be as a franchise, as an organization, as a culture, as a locker room. And it really, I think, in the biggest way, solidified what they stood for and what they were all about. And it's not that they haven't gotten away from that at times in the now, 3 years nearly since they traded for Josh Hart, but there is always that North Star, and if Brunson is your 1A North Star, Josh Hart's never far from his side. And so I don't think it's a coincidence that in a season that looked like there was nothing that was going to, think about how we were feeling on Christmas Day and the vibes at that moment. And it was I don't know if the vibes have ever been higher. And then Josh Hart goes out with this injury, and he has missed the last, I'm doing a quick count here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 games, and they go 4-4 in those 8 games. And, some closer than they should have been wins over the Pelicans and the Hawks. So it was, 3-5. I can't read a computer screen. 3-5 without Josh Hart in those 8 games. And that's not a coincidence. It's not a coincidence because, Josh Hart, yes, he's important on the court. And I wrote down a half a dozen things that were just quintessential Josh Hart plays that I want to run through right now. But we know it's about more than that. We know it's what he does and what he means behind the scenes. And just he gives them the extra something, the extra oomph, the extra, it when you see it, when you're talking about a team okay, that's a team that has to be reckoned with if we play them in a 7-game series because they're going to be relentless. They're never going to go away. And you always have to, it's you always have to have eyes in the back of your head because, Mike Myers is coming around the corner, even though you may have stabbed him 8 times and shot him 5. That's Josh Hart. He just keeps coming at you and coming at you and coming at you. And this win, of course, had Josh Hart's fingerprints all over it. Just the opening 2 threes, and you saw Portland very, very aggressive with their coverage, which is to say that they were not aggressive at all and leaving Hart open by, to a comical degree. And so what did Josh Hart do? Josh Hart did the thing that we have been yelling, screaming at him to do, or we did for much of last season, and he has obliged this year, continuing his streak of putting up, I forget if it's at least 3 3-point attempts in a game or 4 3-point attempts in a game. But he's right up until the injury, he was firing away, and he picked up right where he left off, which was obviously vital. Attempted 5 threes in this game, made 3 of them. So he makes those 2 threes. That was big right out of the gate. In the second quarter, he makes he's the glue guy on an offensive possession where it was bing, bang, boom, finds Cat under the basket for a finish. That's one of those plays that when the Knicks offense has kind of gotten stodgy over the last 3 weeks, you haven't had Josh right place, right time, and that's the part where whenever anybody want to talk about his, the spacing or his impact on the spacing in a negative way, there's more to offensive cohesion and reaching your offensive ceiling and just getting good possessions. There's more to that than just having 5 shooters on the floor. It's about having a guy who knows where he has to be, who's unselfish, and who just kind of has an intuitive sense of the moment. He had a great hit ahead after a rebound. That was kind of late-ish in the second quarter. We saw Hart driving early on in the third quarter. And then, of course, in the fourth quarter, we got a big steal from Josh Hart, which made it 114-104. Looked like it was going to put the game away. Didn't quite. Blazers had one more last gasp in them. And then, sure as shit, after they closed the deficit to 5, who was there to make a floater and essentially seal the deal but Josh Hart? So everything you could have possibly wanted from the heart and soul of the Knicks. And it's just great to have him back. And I was not surprised to see him play well right off the bat. I mean, talk about actually not a classic Josh Hart stat line because he only had 3 rebounds. But 18 points, 6 assists, that's pretty good. 4 turnovers, of course, and then a couple of steals and a block. So other than the rebounds, pretty typical stat line. From there, let's go to the defense. Did the Knicks defend well up until the fourth quarter of this game? In the half court, I actually think they defended okay. I tweeted it out at halftime that the Knicks had played a pretty solid game across the board with the exception of transition defense. And they had given up 20 points in transition at halftime, or 20 fast break points, according to ESPN.com. So the funny part of that is then you get to the third quarter where it seems like every one of Portland's, they scored 25 points. I don't know how many of those were field goals or maybe fouled or foul shots, but it felt like of those 25 points, like 20 of them came as a result of the Knicks not playing good enough transition defense. And then you look on ESPN's team stats page, and according to them, and I checked this after the third quarter to be sure, the Knicks only gave up 5 fast break points in the third quarter. That can't be accurate because watching it felt like they gave up more fast break points in the third quarter than they gave up in, honestly, the first and second quarter combined. So they did a great job turning off that faucet, which they absolutely needed to do. But I thought just beyond that, so it was 104-103 Blazers. They had the lead. They had made a little run, and I'm just checking to see how much time was left. So that was when Shaedon Sharpe made a 9-foot floater, and from that point, the Knicks went on I believe it was an 11-0 run. Yeah, it was an 11-0 run, made it 114-104. And the Blazers, in that stretch of time after that Shaedon Sharpe floater, and I actually should even say, I thought the better defense started probably before that, but the Knicks just had one exceptional defensive possession after another, and a lot of it came down to, one, Jalen Brunson holding his ground. So you saw the Knicks switch Jalen Brunson onto Deni Avdija a couple of times there in the middle of the fourth quarter. One time stood his ground, got Avdija to miss. Another time stood his ground for a moment and before Avdija, and prevented Avdija from shooting it. And Avdija, obviously, the Knicks couldn't do anything with Avdija the whole game. OG tried, McCall tried a little bit. I thought Josh Hart actually had some success against them, and then Avdija kind of figured out Josh Hart. And yes, the whistles helped. I know that, but this is what Avdija does. So I'm not going to sit here and be like, oh, if only the refs were fair, because this is how he plays. And then on that possession, OG gets the steal after, again, Brunson stonewalls him. And then I thought a play that was just as significant as those two is where Mitchell Robinson, so they switched it again, and because OG was still shading over to Deni, the ball went to Kamara. So Deni trying to make the right play again after getting stopped a couple of times. Kamara drives, OG's trailing, does a nice job of trailing, but Kamara still has the lane. And who's there but Mitchell Robinson for the steal? And then there's the Josh Hart, or for the block, excuse me. And then there's the Josh Hart steal after that. And I thought the Hart steal was kind of just representative of a general level of activity in the fourth quarter. And look, it was a great defense. No, the Blazers scored 29 points in the fourth, so it's not like the Knicks shut them down. You could argue they maybe played better defense against Phoenix. But for the second game in a row, when it really mattered and you really needed to see what the Knicks were capable of on that end of the floor, I thought the Knicks showed you something that if you're a fan and you're worried about, oh my God, how are we going to get stops in big playoff games come April and May and hopefully June? Like, what are they going to do? You're seeing this is repeatable stuff. And you want to tell me, Portland, their offense isn't that good. Phoenix, their offense isn't that great. That's fair. But we're like, with how the Knicks defense has played for lots of this year, I think these are big moments. And they are moments to build off of, and they are moments to be encouraged about if you are forecasting the ceiling of this team ultimately. So those are my two big stories of the game, Josh Hart and the Knicks' fourth quarter defense. Obviously, it goes without saying the Knicks' fourth quarter shot making was outstanding. It felt like every time they put up a three in the fourth quarter, it went in, or felt like almost all of them went in. But what I don't want to get lost, and I'm just checking their fourth quarter stat line from deep right now, they were 5 of 11 from three in the fourth quarter. So, 45%, not crazy, but good. Obviously very good. They were all quality shots. And they were all quality shots that came, I thought, off of ball movement and just not settling. There were some times in this game where I thought you could accuse the Knicks of maybe passing the ball a little bit too much, or maybe having ball movement that wasn't as purposeful, but there were just as many times in this game where I think you saw the Knicks, some of the best Knicks passing sequences that we have seen, certainly in the last week and a half, 2 weeks. And again, that came against a Portland team. Like, this team could defend. Like, they don't, other than Sharp, they don't put out a weak defender. Avdia is the best offensive player. Like, he's a really good defender. It's the reason why he's not only going to be an all-star. If he keeps this up and the Blazers are good enough, he probably will be in the All-NBA conversation at the very least. So hit a bunch of good threes off a good ball of movement. That was great to see. And I guess the last thing we do have to talk about, because it was an important part of everything that I just said, in terms of Hart being on the floor, in terms of the defense that they were capable of playing, where the only guy that they really had to account for in terms of a negative presence on the court was Jalen Brunson. And then, frankly, having five guys out there who could all, so I'm getting ahead of myself, because at the very end of the game, Brown went small, which is, I don't remember another big spot this year where Brown has gone without a center, but he did for a stretch there. Didn't have Mitch on the floor. But before that, it was Mitch. And it was Mitch surrounded by 5 or 4 wings. And the guy, obviously, who was not on the floor was Karl-Anthony Towns. So when Karl-Anthony Towns left the game, the Blazers had just taken their first lead probably since the second quarter. I'm not 100% sure, but I think it was, if not the second quarter, then it was the first quarter. It was definitely their first lead in the second half. And it was, the Knicks were very clearly having some problems. I'll put it politely. And again, it was not all Towns. And I actually think for the most part, Towns played a really good, or a perfectly fine game on defense. I actually thought his activity level out of the gate on defense was really good. When I tweeted about that. So this is not to say that Towns was having a bad defensive game. It's also not to say that he was having a bad offensive game. Guy got 20 points on 13 shots. But with how the Blazers were guarding the Knicks, and I'm going to loop back around because that involves our friend Josh Hart again. With how the Blazers were guarding the Knicks, they were basically not allowing Towns to beat them in any real way. And so if you're Mike Brown there, and you have to make a decision, especially with Denny driving like he was, and the prospect of like you need that last line of defense under the basket who's not going to foul. I'm not surprised that Towns wasn't out there. Now, it's funny, we were in my text thread. There was a little bit of conversation at the end there. Was Towns not on the floor because his knee was barking and his knee was acting up? Or was he not on the floor because Mike Brown made the decision, hey, I think my best chance to win this game is with Mitchell Robinson and then 4. I'm sure he's going to be asked about that after the game. Kev is on the ones and twos. Kev, if you want to just keep an eye on Twitter and see, I'm sure Mike Brown's going to be asked about it after the game. We'll see what he says. Either way, I thought it was a hell of a call. And I thought it was the right call. I thought it contributed to them winning the game. It just, I don't know. They looked really good on both sides of the ball. And that is not, I want to be very clear, that is not a disparagement of Karl-Anthony Towns in any way, but I thought it was the right move in this situation. And then the last part of this, and then we'll talk about certain guys like Mikal Bridges came up with some big shots. OG Anunoby, I haven't mentioned his name once other than that key steal, that off-ball defense. 4-7 from deep, including some massive threes late. Deuce McBride couldn't hit anything early. He made some big shots late. Jalen Brunson, what more can you say? Typical, really, really nice Jalen Brunson game, even though he was only 3-9 from deep. But it was, getting back to the Cat point, it does beg the question, because when Cat is out there, even if he's out there with Mitch, if Josh Hart is not there, there really isn't, like, yeah, teams are going to slot their center on Mitch, but Mitch is going to be down in the dunker spot, and that center needs to stay glued to him for rebounding purposes. So you kind of just play 4-on-4 on offense, and Towns could still be a really damaging presence or an important presence, damaging in a good way for the Knicks. When Hart is out there, like, teams are just not going to guard Josh Hart late. And I wonder moving forward if this will lead to more instances of Mike Brown having to choose either Josh Hart to close a game or Karl-Anthony Towns to close a game. And again, this is nothing against Towns. It is purely how teams are going to guard Cat when Hart's on the floor, and whether and how much that shifts the cost-benefit analysis of having him out there for his offense versus his defense. So something to monitor. Last thing, and this is a terrible job by me, because I could have honestly probably started the post game by talking about this guy and singing his praises. What a game for Mitchell Robinson. Finishes with 11 rebounds, 6 on the offensive glass. The Knicks obviously were at a big disadvantage in terms of free throws. Portland shot 25 free throws. The Knicks shot 8. So that explains a bit of the discrepancy in terms of the field goal attempts. But still, the Knicks shot 99 field goals tonight, and the Blazers shot only 84. That's a plus 15. And a big reason for that is 13 offensive rebounds for the Knicks, only 7 for the Blazers. Mitchell Robinson obviously leading the way there. And I just thought he was awesome. His energy was better than anybody else on the court. I mean, I've made fun of the Mitchell Robinson injury management plan a lot this year. It sure looked like it was working tonight, because he was given everything he had. He gave them 25 massive minutes, had a couple of assists, had some nice finishes around the rim, although Klingon did get him for that block the one time, which not very often you see guys do that. But oh my God, Klingon's a mountain. But yeah, that's the last thing. Shout out to Mitchell Robinson. Hell of a game from him, and hell of a win. One more time. Just absolutely massive win from the Knicks. You did not want to start off this West Coast trip with 2 straight losses. You just don't want to lose consecutive games generally, because that's how, like, you had your 4-game losing streak. That's a thing of the past now. Now it's not to say you can't lose another game for the rest of the year, but you don't want to you don't want to have the losses start to pile up. You're treading water right now. You're figuring some things out. The defense is still a work in progress, the whole thing. If you lose a game, you want to come back with a win. You want to come back with a big effort. And the Knicks certainly had a massive effort tonight, and just a really solid night. Really, really, really solid night. I'm like really fired up after that game. That's the sort of win that makes me think like, okay, this team, for whatever worries they instilled in me after the Detroit game, or maybe even before that, this went a long way in putting that stuff behind us. So hopefully it maintains. We'll see. But one game at a time, and they got this. And now, hey, 2 days off. Love that. Love that. Love that. Boy, do they need it. Okay. Before we get to the Super Chats, let us check in on our best bets for this evening. Our best bets, which you could find in the Fanatics Sportsbook app before every game. And we are coming off 2 straight parlay hits where we went 3 for 3. Unfortunately, not quite the case tonight. So for starters, well, who got the Sean? So Sean went with Tamani Kamara, 11 points, over 16.5 points and assists. If he had gone over 16.5 points and rebounds, this would be a hit. But unfortunately, only 2 assists for Tamani Kamara, so that's a loss. Mitchell Robinson over 10 rebounds. That's from Mensa. Mensa knocked that one out of the park, so good job by Mensa. And then there was me, who kept us from having a winning or a 2 out of 3. I took the under, which I went against my rule that I said a couple of weeks ago, which is never take the under on a Knicks game. You don't always have to take the over, but never take the under. This team's too good offensively against anyone. Doesn't matter who they're playing, and their defense could be shoddy enough that doesn't matter who they're playing. They might get a lot of points. I just had a gut feeling coming off the Suns game. Josh Hart back. I thought this was going to be not as good of an offensive game all around. So I took under 230.5, and the teams combined for 137 points. So bad job by me, but good job by Mensa. And again, you could follow these best bets in the Fanatics Sportsbook app before every game. And of course, our video picks, which we have on social media before the game as well. Let's do this. Excited to celebrate with everybody, and then promptly go watch the Golden Globes as soon as I get out of here. First up, J-Rock. What's going on, J-Rock? Does Brunson finally get the hard hat and Tim's for all those successful switches onto Avdia? If he doesn't get it tonight, he's never going to get it. And honestly, I'm trying to think like who else would really deserve it. Like, yeah, I think he also had a steal. Yeah, Kev is saying Mitch because he got 6 stocks, 3 steals, 3 blocks. He would be the guy, but like, was it such an overwhelming performance? Because we know this award is not always given to the best defender in the game. A lot of it is graded on a curve. Mike Brown has been grading this thing on a curve since he started giving this award out. And I think if you grade it on a curve, I think there's a real argument for Brunson. Mitch was the best defender in the game, but if you grade it on a curve, I think you give it to JB. All right. Thanks, J-Rock. Next up. Yeah, I hope it's JB. It's funny at this point. He's the only guy who hasn't gotten it. So, Luyan Chow, I gotta have Hart. And look, he's gonna have a bad game here at some point in the next whatever, or there'll be a game where teams ignore him and he either maybe hesitates or he doesn't make threes, and you're going to hear the same old characters come out of the woodwork and say, oh, Josh Hart, he hurts the team. And look, here's the unfortunate part. And it is incredibly unfortunate. There is just not enough minutes, I don't think, to go around between Josh Hart and Deuce McBride in an ideal scenario. Now, as I say that, Josh Hart played 31 minutes tonight. Deuce McBride played 35. The only guy who played more minutes than Deuce McBride off the bench tonight was Jalen Brunson, who played 37. And they needed Jalen Brunson to come in earlier. You heard Breen say it because their offense was just going nowhere fast. So you know what? Maybe I stand corrected. Maybe there are enough minutes for Josh Hart and Deuce McBride. It feels like a lot of the time, one of those guys is going to have to get the short end of the stick. Now, we should say this tonight was, and I probably should have included this in the open, I would argue this was the most limited rotation, taking everything into account, that Mike Brown has played all year. 7 guys played at least 25 minutes. You saw Jordan Clarkson, who was not effective, play 13 minutes. And then you saw Mo Diawara with 3. No Tyler Kolek, no Kevin McCullough. Obviously, no, and the way that this is going to become even more complicated is when Shamet comes back. And then it's like, okay, well, Clarkson, he was 13 minutes tonight. If you keep him around there, does Shamet cannibalize a few of McBride's minutes? Does he cannibalize a few of Hart's minutes? I don't know. And that's the last question that needs to be answered. But the one thing, and it's telling that I didn't even mention it in the monologue because, frankly, it was kind of an afterthought for me. Tyler Kolek, after we were saying 3 weeks ago, there's no way this guy's going to leave the rotation. Well, he's out of the rotation. Not shocked. Not shocked. He's been up and down, a little bit more down than up of late. And it's just, it's a numbers crunch. Thanks, Leon. Mr. McBagels, what's going on, Mr. McBagels? Put the abacus away. Josh Hart should start games. I've been the one saying I want to see the Deuce starting lineup. We did get to see the Deuce starting lineup for a few games here. They have not started games great with the Deuce starting lineup. I don't think that that's Deuce's fault. And I thought before Josh Hart got hurt, including, by the way, in the Cleveland game on Christmas, when they probably had the worst start to a game that they've had all year. I thought the starting lineup, even before Josh Hart got hurt, with Hart in it, the starting lineup started to go downhill a little bit. So I don't know. I just think this team has an issue starting games. Who should start, Deuce or Josh? I don't think that there's a right answer. It really does feel like there is enough sentiment within, within somewhere of importance that it should be Josh. And again, if we're going to get Deuce McBride playing 35 minutes off the bench, even if it's not 35, even if you're getting Deuce McBride playing 30 minutes off the bench, and this is a night where he wasn't hitting shots, it lets you know what Mike Brown thinks of Deuce McBride. 35 minutes on a night when he was 3 of 11. It's tough. It's a tough call. I'm not going to sit here and pretend it's not a tough call. I'm not going to yell and scream about anybody who's been insisting that Deuce McBride should start. I just, I know I want Josh Hart to play a lot, and I know I want Deuce McBride to play a lot. As for who starts, I don't know. Thanks, Mr. McBagels. Riyadh, what's going on, Riyadh? Holy, the new death lineup? What can Brown do for you? So I don't even know what lineup you're referring to. Are you referring to the lineup with, because we saw a few quasi death lineups. He went small late. I'm going to pull up the lineups right now. So in the fourth quarter, here's what we got. We got the lineup of, and I think this is the one you're referring to. So this actually didn't even have Josh Hart in the lineup. This was Brunson, Anunoby, Bridges, Robinson, McBride. They outscored Portland 13-7. That was really good. We had Brunson, Anunoby, Bridges, Robinson, and Hart. So Hart in for Deuce. That outscored Portland 12-7. So the first lineup with Deuce, with Deuce, they played a little under 5 minutes, 13-7. The lineup with Hart in place of Deuce and Mitch played 2 minutes, 37 seconds, and they outscored Portland by 5. And then you had the lineup with Towns. And again, I'm not putting this all on Towns, but it is what it is. Anunoby, Hart, McBride, Clarkson, Towns, they were outscored by 8 in 2 minutes and 36 seconds. They were outscored 10-2. And then the only other lineup that saw time was, and maybe this is what you're referring to, the super small ball lineup that finished the game: Brunson, Deuce, Hart, Bridges, and Anunoby. No Towns, no Mitch. Again, minute 53 seconds, outscored the Blazers by 1. They have a lot of ways they could go. That's the ultimate thing. They have a lot of ways that they could go. You know, in terms of like order of priority, fourth quarter, close game, JB has to be number 1. I think Anunoby's the only other guy who you would say, like, unless he's having just an absolutely dreadful game, you got to have Anunoby out there too. Then out of the next 5 guys, Deuce, Hart, Bridges, Mitch, Cat, I don't, other than maybe Bridges, and obviously Bridges was in all those lineups that I just mentioned, with the exception of the one that got blitzed. I don't know that anyone else is like, they have to be out there. But Bridges would probably be my next on my list personally. And then you could really just, depends on how guys are playing, depends about the matchups and all that kind of stuff. Thanks, Riyadh. Anthony Sixto, what's going on, Anthony? They had a hot hand to close. Were dealt. Didn't fold and got all the chips. Give me 3 of hearts over ace of spades every time. That's a great line. That's good, Anthony. I like that. Yeah. So, what was I going to say? Yeah, they did a great job. They did a great job. And I thought and like Portland, like kept coming. And just, it was unrelenting. It was just absolutely unrelenting. So, yeah. Thanks, Anthony. Michael Aaron, what's going on, Michael? Hart slander will never be allowed again within earshot of me. Well, you're going to get it. Listen, here's the thing about Josh Hart. I've slandered Josh Hart. Everybody who's a Knicks fan at some point in time has gotten frustrated with Josh Hart. He can be a frustrating player. But every player, on this roster is frustrating at times, including Jalen Brunson, who we've been talking about a lot for not all the best reasons of late. There are like, 3 players in the league, if that, who are above any criticism at any point in time. And they all have MVPs on their mantle. So it's not that like Josh Hart doesn't frustrate us at times and we're not allowed to like be frustrated with Josh Hart. It is that because of the particular nature of his imperfections, and because so much of the content creation community now is dominated by people who view the game a certain way, and spacing is just like so paramount. And it's not me saying that spacing isn't important. It is. It's vitally important. Literally, I just got done talking about how one of the reasons, maybe if it was an injury, one of the reasons why it may not have been imperative to have Towns out there late is because Hart being out there kind of neutralizes the spacing impact of Towns. So I'm not sitting here saying it's not important. It is. But there's more to basketball and winning basketball games than, making sure the defense doesn't potentially ignore this one guy. Because guess what? When they do ignore that guy, he can hurt you in a lot of other ways that make your offense very dangerous, which is why I have always maintained, just because defenses guard Josh Hart a certain way does not mean that you cannot have an insanely effective offense with him out there because of how he's being guarded. You can use that to your advantage. If he is doing everything that he is capable of doing and really active and involved and humming, and all the players around him are engaged and connected, that's a plus. If defenses ignore him, he's too good of an offensive player. He's too smart. And he's too unselfish. So look, I hope everybody could give him a little grace for a while, but we know that that's probably not going to be realistic. Anyway, all right. Next up, Shaq the Great. What's going on, Shaq? Now back to our regularly scheduled programming. Hashtag Heart of NY. I hope so. How great would it be if we look back in a couple weeks and we look back at the hemming and hawing that we did with those 4 straight losses, in particular the last 2, really the Detroit loss, and we're like, that was funny. You got a little stretch up here. You get 2 days off, and then you go to Sacramento. I mean, I'm not saying any win is an automatic win. Sacramento has beaten some decent teams this year. Like, go win 2 in a row. And then you got the Warriors, who are playing really good basketball lately. They have gotten on track themselves. They are playing the Hawks right now. I will look and see where that game is at, but they have won 5 of their last 7 and 8 of their last 11. So the Warriors have righted the ship. So to end a 4-game West Coast road trip against the Warriors team that's playing really well, that's no picnic, which is all the more reason why you want to make sure you get that win in Sacramento, and then you come home and it's 3 straight games at home and no back-to-backs. And then after the third, it's the Suns, the Mavs, the Nets. That's a manageable homestand. Take a little trip to Philly after 2 days off. Okay. Philly's giving it to you a few times. You owe them one. And then you're back home for Sacramento. The Knicks could clean up a little bit in this stretch between now and at least the end of February. And then after the end of February, then it gets a little dicier again before the All-Star break, but that's fine. I hope it is back to our regularly scheduled program. That would be great. Thanks, Shaq. I am AK Legend. What's going on? Hello, KFS. I ignored basketball on my holiday trips. Thank God. I hope you all had a good holiday and New Year's. Welcome back, Hart. Let's go, KFX, and let's go Knicks. Well, I hope you had a great time in your travels. Good job by you ignoring basketball. Certainly don't blame you. And yeah, you didn't miss anything. Everything's just fine. No consternation whatsoever. That's for sure. Thanks, man. Appreciate you as always. Still haven't seen any quotes from Mike Brown. So we'll continue to keep an eye on those to see if he says anything about Towns and in the game on the bench. Norman Jean King, no point guard lineup in the beginning of the 4th. No good. Of course, Norman is going to start off with a complaint in a game that Mike Brown, I thought, coached an exceptional basketball game. So you wanted Tyler Kolek in there, I guess. Here's the thing. The way that the first of all, the Blazers are a really good defensive team. And I thought the issue came from the fact that obviously you didn't have anyone out there who could break down a defense. Now you're telling me if you get Kolek out there and you put him in pick and roll with Towns, it's going to be a better result? Maybe. I'm not going to tell you you're crazy. I was thrilled to see that lineup because I didn't love how Kolek had been playing, and I wanted to see a lineup with Deuce, basically attempting to give Deuce and Clarkson and either Hart or Bridges, and you had Hart out there, and which makes sense because Hart's the better ball handler. I wanted to see what that lineup could do. Again, without a traditional backup point guard. It didn't work great. They also had some decent looks that just missed, but the lineup wasn't great. I want to see more of it. I want to give Josh Hart and Deuce and McCall and Clarkson a chance to run this offense a little bit. I think if we're talking about this regular season as a time of experimentation and seeing what they can get away with and what they can't get away with, this is what we're talking about. You don't like it because every time the coach does anything, it seems that doesn't work. You kill him for it. But I don't know why we're doing that. That's what the purpose of the regular season is for. Next up, Guy Huber, then. What's going on, Guy Huber? I bet on Macau, so a ton of credit for a great game. Yeah, it was a very Macau game. It was a very Macau game. He had, what was that play? So he had the pull-up three. I think actually it might have been the first two baskets of the fourth quarter were both from Bridges. So he had the midi. No, sorry, I'm imagining that. So OG had the first basket of the fourth quarter. Then it was the Mikal Bridges midi. Then Brunson had a couple free throws, and then Mikal had that huge pull-up three on the break to give the Knicks back the lead, 99-94. That basket was so big in the moment. And then he had another play that I thought I wrote it down, and of course I'm scrambling. So he had that rough stretch where he missed the dunk, and then he missed a midi and a three after that. Oh, that's it. But he made up for it. He had a nice three to end a 7-2 run. And then he had that's what it was. He had a great off-ball block on Donovan Clingan. He came from out of nowhere, and I think it might have been after Clingan got an offensive rebound. That's the stuff that Bridges needs to do. Anyway, Brown played with fire without a point guard for stretches, something to eye. Great team win. Mitch was great. Again, give me more of it. Give me more of it. I like Tyler Kolek to me, and I was the one who said 3 weeks ago, you can't take this guy out of the rotation. He's just not one of your best players right now. And I want to see, and oh, by the way, like, here's the thing. It's not like the non-Brunson minutes with Kolek have been going swimmingly lately. So let's not pretend that having Tyler Kolek in there, like, all of a sudden solves all the problems. If it solves all the problems, Mike Brown would have had him out there. So I like that he gave this a shot. We'll see. Maybe Kolek gets a shot at the big, next game. I don't know. I would like to continue to see this look, to see if it's tenable, to see if they could figure some things out, and maybe against certain teams that have the defensive personnel, maybe it just means you can't play Hart and Mitch. Or excuse me, Hart and Cat. Maybe that's what it means. Maybe you go to Mikal in that spot instead. So maybe it's Clarkson, Deuce, Mikal Bridges, OG Anunoby, Karl Anthony Towns. So you do have at least the 5 out, and teams can't shade, so heavily. Hell, maybe you have a double big. Maybe you go double big with the three ball handlers. Maybe you go Mitch, Cat, and then probably would be Clarkson, Deuce, and Bridges. Maybe you try that. Like, there's different ways you could try it. There's different alignments you could do. Again, this is experimentation. Let's keep it going. Thanks, Huber. Riyadh with another one. 4 consistent quarters for the first time in a while. Yeah, there was, the only stretch that was really, I'll say unfortunate is they went up by 10 early in the third quarter. And then you felt like they had a moment. They had a few possessions on offense where they really could have put the hammer down. And again, I referenced it before. Like, Bridges had that dunk that would have put him up by 12. It was a good defensive play. I think it was by Abdia. And they didn't take advantage. And then it was just a transition defense. So other than what I thought was the pretty poor transition defense for the first 3 quarters, but really the third quarter, I thought, it was pretty consistent, solid 4 quarters of basketball. Which is great. Which is great. Thanks, Riyadh. Bill Peterfriend, what's going on, Bill? How much does it bear watching Towns benching down the stretch? Again, I'm waiting to find out. I'm waiting to find out whether he's lying or not. If Mike Brown gets up there and he says, "Yeah, Towns, he tweaked his knee, wasn't feeling great, I didn't want to test it." If he says that, then it does not bear watching. If he doesn't say that, does it bear watching from what perspective? Because, well, let me read the rest of your comment. Hart really brings so much to the team. The heart and grit reappeared. Not a masterclass, but a nice team win. Yeah, that's fair. Look, we've been talking about this problem for a year and a half. Brunson plus Towns equals maybe untenable at times. If you're in a tight game and and again, I'm not saying that like 5-out spacing down the stretch doesn't matter. It does. It makes Brunson's life easier. But when the ball's going to be in Brunson's hands for, in the way that it is for the last 6 minutes, 7 minutes, 8 minutes, whatever of a game, and I don't think, I think there is a different cost benefit analysis than you make in like the first quarter, the second quarter, or third quarter. So introducing the idea of not having one of those guys out on the floor, if you really need to defend in a close game down the stretch, I think it's a good idea. And I think it's something that they should continue to explore. Now, I say one of those two. Like, do I want Brunson off the floor? And do I, maybe if they had a steadier hand in the, as a backup point guard. Oh my God, what a shot from VJ Edgecombe. This kid is so legit. Sorry, crazy overtime game right now between Philly and Toronto. I don't even know who I'm rooting for. Maybe if they had a steadier hand at the backup point guard spot who could actually defend a little bit, maybe it would be a different conversation where you could actually entertain the notion of having Brunson not on the floor in the end of a game. But I just don't think that's a conversation right now. So by default, it's going to be Towns. So I don't know. Worried about him like taking it personally or something like that. I don't know. Like Mike Brown's been talking since the day he got hired about buy-in and unselfishness and, sacrifice and all these things. This falls under that umbrella. Thanks, Bill. Kevin Danishevsky, what's going on, Kev? I hope you're doing well. Hart was unbelievable tonight. Yes, he was. So nice to have him back. OG dominant down the stretch. Yes, he was. Deuce, JB, big shots. Yes, they did. And then negatives. I really don't get Clarkson over Kolek. And then Cat is in a bad way. I disagree with that. I don't think Cat's in a bad way. I thought Cat had a nice game. I really do. I mean that. Was it perfect? No, it wasn't perfect. Rarely is with Cat. I thought Cat had a nice game. Clarkson over Kolek. Kev, I don't want to do the thing that I did so many times that pissed off so many people when Thibodeau would play the veteran over the kid and just be like, hey, veterans, better move to play them generally because they're reliable and yada, yada, yada. I don't want to do that. Is it a justifiable part of the discussion? I think it has to be, especially when Clarkson has not only that he's made big shots for you this year, his effort level on the boards, his effort level on defense, you've seen, I think, noticeable upticks in those areas. Benji spotlighted a couple of those things recently. The way he scores, he didn't do it tonight, but, maybe not a great matchup for him. The way he scores, I think, is important in how he is really able to manufacture a bucket, and manufacture a bucket in a way that is like, getting into the paint and these little 5, 6, 7 footers that just like, they always seem to go in. Like, I think that's important, and then yeah, that's really it. It's what he brings. And I think you are going to give him a longer leash than Kolek. I think that's fine. And Kolek it's not like Kolek's been super consistent recently. Listen, if he made this decision and Kolek was just like knocking it out of the park game after game after game, but we know that hasn't been the case. I'm not going to sit here and say your opinion is crazy. It's not. It's absolutely not. Kolek has shown real goods, like real stuff. I don't know, man. I think Clarkson's coming around. I think it's important to keep him in the fold. I think that's a guy you want. You want him on, at the ready during playoff time. I really think you do. I think you're going to be happy when that time comes and he's still a part of the conversation. Okay, let's do one more and then we could do our stat of the night. Man, still nothing from Brown. I don't know what's up with this. Dan Hidalgo, what's going on, Dan? Captain Obvious here, but health is going to decide if we could win the chip. All of the top 7 are crucial, but man, when we have them all. Yeah, I mean, like if you told me the Knicks top 7 were all going to be healthy and available for all of their Eastern Conference playoff games, how much more confident would I be in the fact that they're going to get out of the East? Maybe it would be higher level of confidence. I don't know how much higher, but it'll be higher, 10% higher, I don't know, 15% higher. I don't know what it is, but yeah, they all of them. The thing is, they're so interchangeable in a lot of ways, but they all bring unique things to the table. Like what Cat brings is unique. What Hart, obviously, what he brings is unique. What Deuce brings is unique. Like out of those top 7, who are the most similar? I'm like Bridges and Anunoby. I don't even know. And they're not that similar. So yeah, I don't know. They need everybody. Hopefully they all do indeed stay healthy. All right. So a couple of things here. Number one, not that. Our stat of the night, our Nito stat of the night, thanks to Jonah Kaufman. This is not, this is obviously for this Blazers game. So we have, this is not the stat of tonight. Kev, Jalen Brunson definitely had more than 12 field goals tonight. Let's do defensive player of the game, shall we? Defensive player of the game, Mitchell Robinson. So Jalen Brunson does not get it. Jalen Brunson being a good teammate, probably. I doubt this is something he is advocating for. Mitchell Robinson looks thrilled in this picture. If you're listening on the podcast feed, let's get that other picture of Mitch up because I think that other one's even better. Yeah, there we go. Mitchell Robinson looks thrilled with the yellow vest and the hard hat and the Timbs. Listen, Mitchell Robinson's awesome, and he was awesome tonight. So very, very happy for him that he got defensive player of the game. We will get back to you on the stat of the night. All right, let's keep going with the super chats. Matt, what's going on, Matt? Coach made a statement to our highest paid player, and I'm here for it. Need to make more of an impact besides being a floor spacer. Again, I did not think Towns had a terrible game. Maybe hold on. I rarely do this like live during a post game, but I feel the need because I always trust Benji's eye. What did Benji give Cat here tonight as his grade? Let's see. Benji gave Cat a B+. Yeah, like that. That's I would have gone B+. I don't think Cat was bad. I think Cat had a nice game. Didn't think he was bad defensively, certainly, or not in comparison to how he can be at times. So yeah. Look, I think Mike Brown I don't think this was about making a statement to the highest paid player. I think it was just making the decision that gave them the best chance to win the game, if it was even that. We don't know that yet. I keep looking here to see if we got any quotes, anything about why Brown or why, Cat wasn't out there. Did it have something to do with injury or whatever? But we'll see. Thanks, Matt. Okay. We're going to keep going with the super chats unless you have the right graphic here. Well, we do have the right graphic. Okay. Now, our stat of the game. 18 stocks for the Knicks tonight versus Portland. This is tied for the most stocks by the Knicks in the game this season. They are undefeated when they get at least 15. That's great. This was their fourth. I know Ben Kim Gervey is happy about that stat. This was their fourth most steals, tied for the third most blocks. We talked about Mitch had 3 and 3. And this was 1 minute shy of Mitchell Robinson's high for the season. So that's nice too. A lot of good stuff. All right. Good stuff. Stat of the night, Jonah Kaufman. Shout out to him.
Paul McFarlane, team got its heart back. Love how Brunson didn't need to be a hero. Great. Thank you for pointing that out, Paul. Because, Brunson was getting a lot of shit, not only for his defense, but for leaning a little bit too much into ISO ball there for a while. And let me just see something. In the fourth quarter, Jalen Brunson, only 4 field goal attempts. You know who? How about this for a stat? OG Anunoby, 5 for 8 from the field in the fourth quarter for 14 points. Led the way. Brunson, 2 of 4 from the field, made both of his free throws. One of his makes was his only 3-point attempt. And then, hold on, where's the number? And then only 1 assist. But again, I thought he had a lot of hockey assists. I guarantee if you go back, you'll see a couple hockey assists there in the fourth quarter from Brunson. Always made the right play. Great job by you pointing that out. Bridges, OG, Deuce, and Hart stepped up. I yelled when Deuce hit the one to go up by 5. I rarely yell unless it's like a game-winning play or something in the last minute. There were like half a dozen times where I got very excited in the fourth quarter of this game. That really, really, really good stuff from this team. What a win. What a really, really nice win. This is one of those wins I guarantee you that at the end of the year, we're going to forget about. In the moment right now, it just feels significant. It really does to me. How they played and just the fact that they got those significant. Okay, thanks, Paul. Sergio Escobar, greetings from Krakow. What's going on, man? I'm telling you, if Brown can manage the lineups like this without the locker room imploding, he's coach of the year and we're winning it all. Look, I'm not going to go that far. I think he has... Look, this may be the first time that he has, quote-unquote, benched a notable player down the stretch. And really, hold on. So, I think, did he end the game with Bridges on the bench at one point this year? Maybe he hasn't. Maybe I might be imagining that. So maybe this is the first time that a healthy... Yeah, Kevin is telling me, yes, McCall sat at the end of a game once. Yeah, I vaguely recall that. So McCall sat once, which is interesting because like the couple of times that happened with Thibodeau last year, it was crazy. A lot of attention was paid to it. But OG has closed every game that he's been healthy for. Brunson obviously has, and I think this is the first time the Cat has sat. I think Brown has been, how do I say this? You hear he is much more direct in his press conferences than Tibbs ever was. When Tibbs actually said something that was even in the slightest bit, negative towards a player. Like I will always, always, always remember the RJ, maybe you better get back in the gym comment after that disastrous loss to Denver, whatever fucking year that was. Because it was so out of the blue. And you could literally count the amount of times on one hand. Whereas Brown, it's like, Benji and DJ talked about it on the X's and O's show the other night, when he was saying we got to move off the ball. Like, it's not hard to read between the lines. He's talking about Brunson. He literally, said Cat has to stop with the silly fouls. So he has already, I think, in both his messaging about what he is about and what this team needs to be about if it wants to accomplish its goals, and just the literal words that he has said, I think he's already laid the groundwork for being a coach who is not going to shy away from, these sorts of decisions. And as I say that, I will fully acknowledge it is one thing to tiptoe up towards the line. It is another thing to step over the line. And I'm not saying that this was over the line what he did. I love the decision that he made. If it was in fact a decision and not an injury related thing, but to actually have a your highest paid player not on the floor at the end, that's big. That's big. Okay, thanks, Sergio. Jeff, what's going on, Jeff? We got takedown tomorrow, 11 a.m. I'm so happy they won this game because takedown episodes for us, or for me at least, are always so much fun when the Knicks have won their most recent game. So we'll have some fun talking about the league at large. You can join us live, 11 a.m. NBA Takedown YouTube channel. What does Jeff have to say? Denny's whistle is the best plot armor in the NBA this season. Also, it's special to have so many most important players between OG, Mitch, and Hart. You can make the argument that every one of the Knicks' top 7 guys has had moments this season that you would have said they're the most important guy. Even Deuce, talking about what their record was when he was out early on, especially. Okay, finally, here we go. Wait, how did I miss this? So Brown addressed this a while ago. You know what? It's a bad job by me. Mike Brown said not closing with Cat was because he thought the groups out there were stringing together stops and rolling. Well, there you go. There's our answer. Said he'll do that if it doesn't impact the guy's minutes too much. Okay. There you go. There you go. Anyway, yes, Jeff, great point. Completely agree with you. Knicks got a lot of most important guys. Hush Zoo, what's going on, Hush? Eagles lose, Knicks win. What a great Sunday it's been. I had the Eagles game on one of my little TVs, and my one of my best friends, Jonathan George Russo, was a Niners fan, which actually reminds me I should probably have texted him, but I will do so right now. A congratulatory text for that win. Welcome back, Mr. Hart. Just his playmaking alone, man, what a shift for us. Love that fourth quarter defense. Let's go Knicks. Yep. Yeah. Good day all around. Thanks, Hush. House Effect. What's going on, House Effect? Felt like a Tibbs win. Okay, sure. Why not? Clarkson over Kolek and Kev. Bad transition defense. No Brunson, Deuce, and Hart lineups. So this is actually a derogatory. This is not a compliment. This is a negative comment towards Brown and I guess a very overly negative comment towards Tibbs. Could we just evolve one day as like a basketball watching society where actually, you know what? I'm just going to stop that sentence right there. Can we evolve as a basketball watching society? That is my ask. It is my only ask. It is the only thing I've been asking for however long I've been doing this shit. And I will once again ask it today. Next up, I hope to God we don't end on this super chat. We have to end on that dog shit super chat? Oh my God. That sucks. Well, no, we're not ending on that. Kev, find some other comment in the chat that is not that piece of dog shit from whoever the fuck that was. GC Malerba. No, we don't want that one. Okay. J2D. Okay. Glad we won. No, we're not this one. Okay. We got to get a good vibe chat here. Come on, Kev. You can do it. I believe in you. Nothing? There's nothing. There you go. Jose G Insight. Total team effort. Fantastic. Let's end on that. Done. It was a total team effort. That's great. Oh, God. All right. I'm going to go watch the Golden Globes. Thanks, everybody, for checking out another Knicks Film School postgame presented by Fanatics Sportsbook. Please, everybody, subscribe to this YouTube channel. And also wherever you get your podcast, check us out there too. You could leave your ratings and your reviews and all that great stuff. We will be back. We have a lot of good stuff coming up. We've got a couple days off here, but got some cool pods coming up. Got a nice, believe it or not, a first-time guest somehow a first-time guest on the Knicks Film School podcast coming up on Tuesday. Very excited to talk to this individual. I'm not going to spoil, but someone who I've had many conversations with offline, never had a conversation with on the show. So look forward to that. Me and Jeremy tomorrow. Got a nice Deuce McBride newsletter coming up, Knicks Film School newsletter. I think that's going to be on Tuesday. Something else to look forward to. Hey, while we're doing, and in case you missed it, Jonas Plout did his second edition of the Knicks trade deadline, like deep dive primer. Had a couple of fun fake trades in there. That was in Friday's Knicks Film School newsletter. If anybody has not read that, make sure you go read that. Really exceptional piece. And again, it's like much deeper dive than your typical fake trade bullshit. Like, he really gets in the weeds on if the Knicks are looking for certain targets, here's what they should consider, so on and so forth. So really great content. DJ had a video that I still have not had time to watch, but that came out a few days ago. I still owe a Patreon mailbag. Oh, here we go. We got one more. Ziad Rahim. Tonight, the team looked more like the team we love. 100%. All right. I'm going to end on that. Thanks, Kev, on the ones and twos. Thanks, everybody, for checking out another episode. And we will be back with more fun and games before you know it. Peace out.
Must be 21 or older. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Connecticut, call 888-789-7777. Massachusetts, call 800-327-5050. New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY. Maryland, visit mdgamblinghelp.org. Not available in all states. Terms apply. See the Fanatics Sportsbook app.